The trending global news on Global Business Review this morning. China petitions U.S. at the WTO on tariffs. Netflix to purchase Regency Outdoor for $300 million US. And the Nigerian government says it was set to finance the 2018 budget with debt financing. Hello and welcome to Global Business Review on Pride Television, reaching you from Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Emmanuel Akindoboa. The United States President Donald Trump is doubling down on his tough trade talk on Friday morning, saying in a tweet that China has the upper hand at the World Trade Organization, where Beijing has opened a challenge against the president's latest tariff proposal. The tweet follows the latest back and forth between the two countries over trade. Mr. Trump raised the stakes Thursday night by saying he had asked the top trade official to consider tariffs on an additional $100 billion US in China goods on top of the $50 billion already proposed. China responded in turn by opening a WTO challenge to the proposed tariff. The request for consultation is the first step to opening a WTO dispute. Well, joining me now to consider some of the wider implication of the looming trade war between the United States and China is VWS analyst and business correspondent Joy Onwuka. Good morning to you, Joy.
Good morning, Emmanuel.
Welcome. And the looming crisis between China and the United States is grabbing the headline. What exactly is this all about?
Well, the issue between China and the United States, of course, has been a forth and back issue, starting with the United States accusing China of imposing on United States companies in China, imposing them to surrender intellectual property so that they would be able to have their businesses in China. And of course, the Chinese government has come out to refute this claim, to say that the United States was actually not saying the fact about the issue. And so it has led to the United States coming up with an investigation against the intellectual property theft by the Chinese government or Chinese firms, so that's Beijing as a whole. And this has also led to the United States imposing a $50 billion tariff on goods from China. Consequently, the back and forth tussle between the governments didn't seem to be coming to an end, as negotiations were not ending at a very on a very good note. And so the United States government recently decided to increase the tariffs from $50 billion by $100 billion. And so in total, we're having tariffs up to $150 billion imposed on Chinese products imported into the United States. And so this is how far the issue has gone. And so this has also consequently led the Chinese government to drag the United States government to the World Trade Organization, and whereby the WTO has decided to step into the case and to see if it could actually resolve the issue between the world's largest, biggest economy.
Well, looking at this two powerhouse, I mean, United States is the largest economy in the world. China is the biggest growing economy in the world, perhaps, and they have the largest market in the world owing to their, huge population. But what would you say is, who are the major players? Are there some companies that will be affected on the American side as well as on the Chinese side? Who are the key players in all of this?
Well, on both sides, various people would be affected. Major of them will come from the manufacturers, because at first, Donald Trump imposed tariffs on aluminum and steel. Of course, you know that the United States imports more of the Chinese steel and aluminum into the United States. So as such, manufacturers in the United States, especially manufacturers of automobile, would be most affected by this. And then it would lead to increase in prices of these goods. And at the same time, farmers in the United States would also be affected, because 65% of soybeans exports goes to China. And China has decided to also impose tariffs on soybeans.
Just like a payback.
Yes, it's a tit-for-tat stuff for both governments. So while the American government comes up with one new legislation on a tariff, the Chinese government tends to retaliate. And so it's been going back and forth.
Okay. Now, this news broke last week, and since then, a lot of development has ensued, both in the United States and in China. But what's the state of the market right now?
Well,
and the economy in those countries?
For the economy generally, it has not been stable. the economy has not been stable, especially in
owing
the United
to the impact
States.
Of this.
Owing to the impact of it, especially in the United States. The foreign exchange, the market in the United States was the one to suffer this. Wall Street actually suffered a loss on Thursday, owing to a tweet from Donald Trump. That's after China took the United States to WTO. And of course, we know that the United States would want to respond to it. And so this led to stocks going, especially stocks from the Chinese market, trading in the United States market. It went down. And then also in the Chinese market, importers or the manufacturers of steel and aluminum have been skeptical because they have not been able to export their produce down to the United States where they have their biggest market. And so as such, it's not a win-win situation for them. At least we see that they are both losing. There's a loss on both ends. The Chinese steel makers are losing. The American automakers are also losing. Farmers are also losing.
Markets have been restricted.
Markets have not been stable. They have been restricted. And everyone is sitting on the edge. Everyone is expecting their government to come to the negotiating table.
Do you think this is more of a political decision than an economic decision? For President Donald Trump putting up that tariff imposition on Chinese brand, do you think it's more of a political move rather than an economic decision from the United States and the payback from China as well?
Well, it's quite easy to say it's political because, like you rightly said, America has the biggest economy and China has the largest growing economy in terms of population. But then analysts would also look at it from this angle. Last month, Donald Trump has had to fight Broadcom, the Singapore-based company that's now domiciled in the United States, because of this same issue of intellectual property theft. And so it's not like the American president is actually having a political battle with the Chinese government, but he recently stated that the United States would have to learn to protect its intellectual property. And so Donald Trump is insisting that he is trying to protect America's intellectual property. While analysts
by imposing tariffs?
By imposing tariffs. That's the problem now. Analysts believe that if you want to fight intellectual property theft, shouldn't it be on that circle rather than imposing tariffs on the Chinese government? Although we would also believe that it's because the Chinese government had come out to refute this claim. Because when Donald Trump first made this claim, the Chinese government also came out to refute this claim. And so I believe that, we believe that Donald Trump was expecting the Chinese government to probably accept, but of course you know that no government will come out to accept that it's been stealing intellectual property of another country.
Of another country.
Definitely. So
I mean, big rival when it comes to...
Big rivals coming together, and then there is no
way
way China will come out to accept that it has stolen intellectual property.
But going forward, because China is the biggest trade partner for Africa, so this is hugely, I mean, the entire world may be affected with this trade war between the United States as well as China. But let's look at it from a very, very broad point of view. Will imposing higher tariffs actually curb intellectual infringement as insinuated by the American government, asking that Chinese companies pay more for goods they brought into the United States? Will they now, reduce the level of intellectual infringement? Because we've seen in recent times where goods go into China to be manufactured. On leaving China, China has what you can call a counterfeit for that. So do you think maybe this intellectual war and all infringement and all that will be reduced if this tariff go through on the part of the United States? Well,
on the long run, it might not actually lead to intellectual property theft being reduced. But I believe one of the things that would be achieved out of this whole thing is that China would ultimately have to look for another market, same as the United States. When Donald Trump first imposed this tariff, it was a bit good for steel manufacturers in the United States. In the long run, the U.S. will have to depend on its own steel makers,
manufacturers, to supply the demand.
To supply demand in the United States. Same thing with steel makers in China and aluminum makers. They will definitely have to find another market, or at the same time reduce the number of steel they produce to ensure that
which may affect
it would definitely it would affect revenue for the country. And then on a larger scale, for African countries that tend to depend more on Chinese products, well, we might say it's a good thing for us because now China might be looking at Africa as its first market rather than the United States. So it might be a blessing to us. But at the same time, in the long run, every country would have to end up learning to be sufficient for itself, producing what they need, because right now what the American government is trying to do is to ensure that America is sufficient for itself. America produces everything Americans need, ensuring that most of the things that will be imported into the country are those things that the nation cannot produce.
Whatever they want to, whatever they can produce, they should produce. And
exactly.
Of course, gain revenue. But let me just ask you this. Looking at the whole thing, where does the WTO come into? Because these are two big elephants, if you want to use that expression. They say when the two elephants fight, it's the grass. And the grass in this case includes third world developing countries, developing economies like Nigeria and the rest of Africa, who depend on these two big powerhouses for some forms of revenue. So what does the WTO do in this case? How do they resolve this trade disputes?
Well, the WTO, that's a World Trade Organization, is the largest global international organization that handles trading between two economies. Definitely. Now, like you rightly said, America and China are the world's largest economies when it comes to business. And so when China lodged that complaint, now it is within the powers of the WTO to come up with legislations or solutions to this problem. Now, at the heart of the WTO are agreements between nations, which these nations come together to sign, and which their parliament also is in agreement to. So this right now, for China to have gone ahead to the WTO, it means the United States would have to come to a negotiation table with the Chinese government. This is one of the things resolve this ultimately. Now, this is what everyone has been looking forward to. But due to comments coming from the United States government, the Chinese government had refused to come and sit at the negotiation table. While they tried to do that in the previous month, it ended with tariffs being increased from $50 billion to $100 billion. So with the WTO coming in, we assume that in the long run, this battle between the Chinese government and the United States government would soon come to an end.
Okay. All right. It may still come to an end. And it's really, really interesting how this, but do you think, do you see any end in sight to this soon?
Well,
do you think there's a timeline for this, or this is just an impasse that may drag on for a long time to come?
Usually there's actually no timeline for trade wars between countries, definitely. You know, in the past we've had a trade war before. But we are hoping that as the world continues to grow and as the world continues to develop, issues like this will be resolved much quicker than it used to be in the past.
Without political undertone.
Exactly, without political undertone. And as much as we know that sometimes politics cannot be separated from these things, but we just believe and we're hoping that China and the United States will be able to resolve the issues they have right now.
For the interest of the world?
Exactly, for the interest of the world.
All right, I've been speaking with Joy Onwuka, market stock analyst and economic analyst as well on the Global Business Review. We've been talking about the trade dispute between the United States and China. We'll go on this commercial break now, and when we return, we'll review our next story with our set of analysts. Stay with us. It's still Global Business Review on Pride Television. Welcome back. It's still the Global Business Review on Pride Television. And the federal government of Nigeria has announced a 2018 budget proposal, which will put spending at a record high of 8.6 trillion naira. The budget is termed the budget of consolidation, and it assumes an oil price benchmark of $45 per barrel. Well, oil production of $2.3 million barrels per day and an exchange rate of 305 naira per dollar is the estimate and a benchmark for this. Budget revenue is projected to hit 6.6 trillion naira and deficit financing at 2.0 trillion naira. Well, joining me now to analyze the debt financing of Nigeria's 2018 budget are Voident Wire Services analyst Charles Abuede and Victor Okechukwu. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
All right, let me start with you, Victor. And what is the debt structure for Nigeria at the moment?
Nigeria has a conservative debt profile. It has a total public debt of $70.9 billion US.
Okay.
It's about over 50% is denominated in naira, and is divided into external and domestic debt. Domestic debt makes up about 41.6 trillion naira, and external debt makes up about 18.9 billion US. So you see that that's the debt structure for the country. And when you look at the thresholds, you see that the IMF threshold for debt to GDP is 56%, but Nigeria is currently at 15%, up from 14.6% in 2017. And I'd like to state that the Nigeria's debt profile, the domestic debt financing, is being the mainstay of Nigeria's public debt. It's about, as I mentioned earlier, 41 billion US dollars. So that's the debt structure. PwC report said that Nigeria's current debt to GDP ratio is over 50%. It should be, the threshold is 25%. So, but I
mean, we're in an excess of over 25%.
Yes, yes, and that's the fourth consecutive increase in the last between 2015 till now. So it's rising. It's conservative, but it's rising. And
what are the factors responsible for this excessive increase from the threshold? We're supposed to be running at a 25% debt ratio, but we are running at 50%. I mean, that's quite astronomical.
Yes, well, but you can see is the cost of governance. For good governance to be delivered, in quote, some sacrifices have to be made. And you know that the current government has been mentioning, you know, when it came in 2015, it went around the world saying that there's no money. So, but analysts are of the opinion that there are other resources that the government could optimize in-house within the economy to be able to generate those funds and not go out to, or, you know, generate public debt either through domestic or external debt financing.
What are the key lenders for the debt financing for the federal government of Nigeria at this point in time?
Yes, according to the Debt Management Office, the key lenders to the Nigerian government is the Nigerian public, because they make up over 50% of Nigeria's public debt. So the Nigerian public provides about 41 billion US dollars.
Let me come to you, Charles, now. What would you say is the condition of the Nigerian economy at this point in time? It's the beginning of the second quarter. What's the outlook for the economy at this point?
Okay, with the Nigerian economy, the condition actually is very stable, and according to S&P, the outlook for this year is that the economy is stable and it is growing at a rate of between 2.4% to 2.8%. Now, if we look at the year 2017, the real GDP growth rate of 2017 was at 0.8%. Now, in the last 3 years, between 2015 down to 2017, you could see that 2017 Nigeria experienced a real GDP growth rate of 0.8%. Now in 2016, the real GDP growth rate was on a deficit, owing to the fact that Nigeria experienced recession, and the GDP growth rate, real GDP rather, growth rate was on a negative of 1.6%, and 2015, where the economy was more stable, was at 2.7%.
What has everything working for the Nigerian government, and how's the outlook for the 2018 budget going to be worked out for Nigeria?
Okay, the 2018 budget was is estimated at 8.6 trillion naira, and of this 8.6 trillion naira, 2 trillion naira has been set aside for the debt financing, and also the federal government is also expecting a balance of 306 billion naira, which is to come from the sales of non-oil assets, which is to be done by the Bureau of Public Enterprises. So with this now, the financing, and Nigeria is also supposed to borrow, 1.69 trillion naira, to finance this deficit. Yes, exactly, in the budget.
Okay, are there any alternatives to deficit financing? Why can't we generate what we spend?
Well, analysts are of this opinion that definitely we have vast resources in which the federal government of Nigeria can tap into. They can optimize it so as to raise the required funds to finance this budget deficit. And one thing I will say, because there's still this belief that Nigeria, the federal government will rely majorly on the oil. Apart from that, even the market, the debt market, because of the stable economy or the stable debt market. Now, one thing that the alternative to it, I feel, is or analysts have come up and said that a good and efficient tax system, will help, as an alternative.
I'll come to Victor now. Now we know the debt profile, we know the debt structure, we know the state of the economy. Looking at the 2018 budget, what's going to be the implication on the Nigerian economy on the short, medium, and long term?
Well, just last week the Monetary Policy Committee met and they were able to retain the MPR at 14%. So when you combine the MPR at 14%, which is a contractionary monetary policy, and then the budget of 8.6 trillion, that is, when it's passed, it's money that's going to be pushed into the economy. You would see that, let's just look at the effects of the Monetary Policy Committee. You see that the MPR has already made credit a little bit obscure for small and medium scale enterprises. So getting credit is now expensive, or is still expensive. They are unable to engage on expansionary activities. So for the budget coming in, it's expected that it will create some inflationary pressures. So, but you see that the government is also expecting to recoup money. Is expected to increase their debt profile by getting money from external and domestic sources. So domestic sources are basically these small business owners. So when this money is recouped from them, because it's going to be attractive, people want to buy, like to loan the government money. Those monies are now moved from other productive activities like expanding the businesses, hiring new staff, to going into government coffers. So that is going to restrict and lower business profits. That's what analysts are thinking that's going to happen eventually.
Okay. Charles, let me just come to you quickly on what's the percentage of the budget that we're looking at for the debt financing? What percentage of the 2018 budget of over 8 trillion naira are we going to be financing with debt?
Well, from the 2018 budget, which is 8.6 trillion naira, 23% of this total budget is to be used to finance the deficit. But if we are to add up with the sinking fund, which is 220 billion naira, and that accounts for 3% of the total budget, then we can see that 26% of the total budget is to be used to finance the deficit.
So are you saying it's not all that bad for a growing economy like Nigeria?
Well, for a growing economy like Nigeria, it's not really that bad, because adding up that the sinking fund together with what is there, with how much the amount they have proposed for the 2018 budget, you know, definitely looking
not
at what we are operating on,
not
a bad outlook. Yes.
I'll just quickly come to you, Victor. Let's just look at the MPC. You did mention the MPC earlier during your thoughts. Is it having any implication on what we're looking at this point in time? The MPC met last week in Abuja. Yes. They kept most of the indices stable. Yes. The interest rate still remains at 14%. And of course, the basis point and the asymmetric corridor are still left as they were. So, would this have any impact going forward? It's 2018.
Well, the impact has already kicked in. What is beautiful is that the economic agents are now, the degree of uncertainty that was before the meeting has disappeared. Economic agents have an idea of what to expect between now and the next meeting. So, and then the Monetary Policy Committee anticipated the passage of the 2018 budget, which they know that, you know, analysts before the Monetary Policy Committee met on the 3rd and 4th of April, the analysts were saying that the Monetary Policy Committee should look into reducing the monetary policy rate.
At least the interest rate.
Yes, to be able to encourage investors, local investors, to be able to get credit at cheaper rates. But if the MPC had done that, you would see with this budget, if once the budget is passed, that would be so much money in the economy, and inflation will skyrocket. Yes, it's already at 14.33%. If it begins to go into 22%,
so perhaps the MPC retained the rate in anticipation that the budget would pump in more funds into the economy.
Of course, and you know that the ultimate goal is to drop inflation to single digits.
Okay. All right, I've been discussing with our in-house analyst at VWS, that's Victor Okechukwu and Charles Aboyede. We've been looking at Nigeria's debt revenue profile and how this will have an impact on the 2018 budget. We'll go on a break now, and when we return, we'll come back with much more stories for you on the Global Business Review. Stay with us.
is CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria.
Central Bank of Nigeria. CBN is Central Bank of Nigeria.
I know it, but I don't want to answer, please.
CBN. I don't know.
Hey, you have come again. You have come again. You have come again. All these current affairs questions, I've forgotten them, please.
Currently now, I don't know the current CBN governor now.
Please, I don't watch news, so I don't know.
I don't remember anymore, please.
The thing is, they keep changing them over and over, so I've not been able to assimilate that presently now.
On the sex, can you deceive me? That's another question. That's not in my memory, please.
Oh, sorry. I don't know, right?
Okay, let's have the CBN governor. CBN governor, what's his name? Well, I don't forget.
I don't know. The present one, I don't know, honestly.
No, it's not Sanusi. That should not be Sanusi now. This is not the tenor of Sanusi. Can't remember.
You guys have started. I am not interested.
Welcome back. It's still the Global Business Review on Pride Television. And Netflix is attempting its largest acquisition, offering more than $300 million to acquire a company that owns billboards across Los Angeles, including West Hollywood's famed Sunset Strip. According to people familiar with the matter, the move illustrates how one of the most successful streaming media companies values physical advertising assets as it steps up its marketing effort in that one. Billboards are holding their own compared to other forms of traditional advertising, such as ads in newspapers or TV that are easy to skip. Join me now to discuss this impressive development on Netflix is Leko Fakoyejo, business analyst with Voidant Wire Service. Welcome to the show, Leko.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take us down this story as it developed. Netflix, billboard, where does the connection comes in?
Well, this shows the love for physical advertising, and Netflix believes that it's easy making use of a platform like billboards because they realize that it's not easy to skip on like TV and newspaper. They believe that this is something that people can see wherever they're going to. They can't skip it intentionally.
It's right in their face.
It's right in their face. And also, don't forget that Netflix has been making use of the Regency billboards for some time now. They made use of it to advertise their Stranger Things and also The Crown, which are Netflix originals movies. So they've been making use of these advertising billboards because it's also located in strategic areas. We spoke earlier that it's known in Westwood or West
in Los Angeles,
yes, Los Angeles.
And all that.
It's also located in UCLA's campus. It's also located in some major freeways as well in Los Angeles and also Los Angeles International Airport. So when you see this, they believe that it's a strategic location. So it's a good way to advertise and showcase their own content. And don't forget that they're spending over $2 billion on marketing. So they want to focus on physical advertising.
Okay, let's look at why is the purchase of Regency out advertising a big deal for Netflix at this point in time?
Well, just like I said, it's a big deal because they are focusing on promoting their own original content. And competition has been rising in the video on demand platform, streaming platform for some time now. And Netflix want to keep their grip on the industry. They don't want to lose that hold. And they know that if you check it, Netflix most watched, or should I say Netflix original content have over 32% of their subscribers. That means 30% of their subscribers focus more on Netflix originals. And through that, they believe that making use of a billboard would of course eat their target audience. Would eat their target audience. That's why they are market so much money, $2 billion to promote their content,
and
their original
to
content, and
acquire
to acquire. Although there's not a certain if Netflix will be able to acquire it. It's still a bidding process. They're not the only company who are bidding for this agency, for this billboard that was of course founded by Drake and Brian Kennedy. But they believe that this will set the right tone for them, because as you know, Netflix, Reed Hastings once said that the more money they put in the business, the more better future it foresees. So they are putting right now they're spending more than their revenue. That's the fear. But they believe that if they put in as much as they are putting right now, which is also acquiring the Regency advertising, it would help their business. It would help.
I want to come to you on the profitability and the market structure for Netflix. What's the market structure? How do they hope to take over the media streaming industry with this acquisition?
Well, they are already, or should I say, they're leading the media streaming industry already.
Is this like a game changer for them?
Of course, it is a game changer for them. Don't forget that this billboard can also be used by others. But this billboard being theirs right now means that they have the monopoly, they have the control.
All the competition
all the competitions, yes. So they are having, is like taking two steps forward, while the competitors are still taking one step forward. Now, don't forget that this is their content. They've had over 120 something movies or series or movies that they have put out there, which is original content. So, and right now, the industry right now is oligopoly, because there are few people, the industry, the barrier entry is quite high for people to come in and quite high for people to go out. Now, right now, Netflix has invested so much money into the industry, into the business, the on-demand video streaming, and so they believe that this acquiring this advertising firm will help grow their business, because right now they have over 120 million subscribers, and of course their revenue is 18. As in 2007, they recorded over 11 billion, and they are looking forward to making this year's own 15 billion. So if they make $15 billion, so if they acquire this billboard and they are able to push their content, if they are able to push their content with this billboard, they would hit the target market. They will hit the target market, and of course they can also get resources from also these billboards that they've acquired.
The acquisition, like you rightly said, the process is still on. It's not concluded yet. But what are the key players we're looking at? Both on the Netflix side and the Regency outdoor advertising side.
Basically now, those who are also involved in the acquisition are not known right now. But based on my own understanding, Netflix is the major player trying to go in. The key players in the industry, that's the online streaming industry, like Amazon, Hulu, or CBS, HBO, it's not yet known if they have interest in acquiring such advertising platform, physical advertising platform. The interest is not yet known.
The traditional form of advertising.
So Netflix is the highest, or should I say, the biggest online streaming, video streaming that is coming with an offer, and is a huge offer. Netflix is known to bid high. They come in high whenever they want something, and they usually get it.
Okay, let's talk about the company Netflix now. Putting $300 million in a traditional advertising platform, outdoor advertising, which many people are actually saying is running out of fashion anyways. How much of their revenue? Let's take us through the company. Do they have the revenue profile or the revenue assets to go through this and come out of this successfully?
Of course they have. And Netflix is a profitable company, right? In 2006, in 2015, they had over $6 billion, over $6 billion. And in 2016, it rose to $8 billion, over $8 billion. And in 2017, it had over a 32% increase, a 32% growth of going into, they recorded over $11 billion in 2017. Right now, they believe that in 2018, they can have a 28% growth as well, which is they will be hitting $15 billion at the end of 2018. So
there
with
are
such
good
plan,
projections
yes,
for
with
them.
such projection, with such outlook for their company, they Hastings believes that they have what it takes. Okay, that they have what it is. They have the revenue to push further and to, of course, still be the biggest element.
But are the revenue trend, are they constant? Are they variable? Can they vary from time to time based on demand?
Well, you said it based on demand. Demand sometimes they said.
Well, the revenue. Let's look at
Okay.
the revenue for Netflix in the last 3 quarters.
Yes.
Has it been a particular swing, or has it been topsy-turvy?
No. It has, because in 2015, they had a 30% increase growth, which why they were able to record over $8 billion in 2016. Now, in 2016, they recorded $32 billion.
So that means
in 2017, they recorded
an upward swing for them.
In 32 increase in growth in 2017, which why that's the reason they had $11 billion. So it has been a step forward and an increase rather than rather than going zigzag or not being I don't know how to put this exactly now, but the truth about the matter is that Netflix has been able to what they put in is not what they're getting in terms of investments, true, but their revenue has been on the increase and has not slowed down.
Okay, we're still looking at Netflix bid to step up their game by buying over the outdoor advertising services provided by Regency. Remember, Netflix is a leading name in the media streaming industry. But let's talk about the media streaming industry now, Lekon.
Okay.
What would you say, how profitable is the business in the first place? Apart from the United States, well, of course, it has the largest market. Coming down to an economy like Nigeria, how profitable, what are the exit and the entry barriers into a media streaming business?
I said it earlier that the entry barrier is quite high. A passerby can just decide to walk into the industry and decide that, okay, he wants to create such business. It's not easy based on the investment. Okay, it's cost incentives. It's pretty high for individuals or for companies or for groups to decide that, okay, they want to come into this business. Now, you have to take a look at the content. This industry, when it comes to streaming, is based on content. Our content right now in the online streaming, video especially, is gold, because
it's not cheap.
It's not cheap, I tell you, because the more competitors, from Amazon to Hulu to HBO to CBS,
so you need to have a great offer.
Yes, to Netflix, who wants content? They want original content. Nobody wants to depend largely on production companies anymore. They want to be the distributor, film distributor. They want to produce their own movies. And that's why Netflix went into Netflix Originals, producing their own in-house movie in 2012, which gave birth to House of Cards, Stranger Things, The Crown, and lots more. And currently now, they are still looking forward to produce more movies and more series. So you have to call that content is king. And right now, content is king. And it's creating this, before there's this saying that when two elephants are fighting, the grass would always be the one to suffer. But right now, these elephants, that's the Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, they are competing to be the highest bidders. But those content developers, the creators now, are the ones enjoying this competition. Because apart from consumers, of course, subscribers, enjoying the competition based on price drop, because once the competitors start coming in, you realize that it starts influencing price, either going up or coming down. Also, when it comes to content, the more competitors want your content or want your good content, the more price they are willing to pay for.
And the more revenue for you.
And more revenue for the creator.
Okay, I would want to ask you this quickly, Lekon. Looking at traditional television services, the TVs, the decoders and all that, compare them to streaming. Do you think streaming is the future? Or do you think streaming would always play second fiddle to the traditional broadcast and pay TV services?
Streaming is already showing that they are the future. I probably believe that they are the future today right now, because there was a time.
What's the demand for on-demand streaming services compared to pay television cable services?
You know, one reason why Netflix is receiving huge demand right now is because they offer a free ad. Right now, they can offer programs that don't have to run on commercials. subscribers don't have to depend on or have to wait for commercials to run before they catch their favorite shows, and also they don't have to
enjoy it on the go
without, and also
no little or no interference.
Of course, and also Netflix offers Bing Watch, which is people can watch. Of course, we all know that this is based on series and movies. Now people can watch a season movie on the go without having to wait for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 months before the next episode.
I thought some cable TV program service providers are also coming with such service where you could actually.
But you have to know that it still takes a day. When you watch an episode today, you have to wait for the next day.
So
or
the time factor favors.
The time factor, and also you have to note that there's also a play where, when it comes to cable network now, subscribers have to pay, or should I say, consumers have to pay for huge stations, for so many stations that they are probably not even watching. So now Netflix, Amazon streamline that interest for them. Now they know that what they want is movie stations. Now they can decide to subscribe to Netflix and get their favorite movies,
without being bored with the other things,
others, or being paid for stations that they don't even watch. So right now there's a lot of cord-cutting, and people believe that probably it might affect at the end of the day, because right now subscribers are paying less than the investments Netflix and Amazon and all the competitors are putting in, not even making, are putting in. The operating cost right now is on the high, and people are believing that, according to industry analysts, they believe that right now, very soon, they will start asking for subscribers to pay high, because right now the pricing is within $9.
What's the demand level for streaming services right now, from the estimates in the industry?
Right now, Netflix has over 170 million subscribers. Now we have
what share of the market is that?
Okay, that's probably 28%. Okay. Netflix. Now you have to note that, let me put it this way, Time Warner, or should I say HBO, the parent company in Time Warner, is in probably a mega deal right now going on with AT&T, although it hasn't been agreed right now. But for AT&T to decide to buy Time Warner and HBO, there's a plan here. HBO will become a firepower when it comes to financially, and they're able to push their drive. And also you have to look at Disney as well is going into streaming. So if streaming
more
is not the future,
are coming.
Yeah, so if streaming is not the future, these companies would focus on their production and decide to give probably station like BBC, Sky, and others their content to showcase.
Okay. I've been discussing with Lekon Fakoyejo, and it's been a really great review of Netflix bid to step up ahead of competition by acquiring outdoor advertising services to showcase some of its content. Thank you very much, Lekon Fakoyejo, for joining us on the Global Business Review.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes the Global Business Review at this hour. Thank you for joining us on the program. Do remember to follow us on all our social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pride Television. My name is Emmanuel Akindubuwa. Until next time, bye for now and see you.